Welcome to the Fiorina Beauty Podcast, hosted by Patti. Be prepared to hear stories of triumph, challenge, and overcoming. Along the way, you'll learn a few things too. But most importantly, you'll learn one thing. Say Bella, which means you are beautiful. Welcome to the Fiorina Beauty Podcast.
Hi, I'm Patti Saponaro with Fiorina Beauty, and I have been waiting all week for this episode, and you are going to be so excited. So get a pen and a paper and get yourself in a comfortable seat because my guest today is incredible. Piper, I am so excited. Thank you so much for coming. Please say hello to everyone, and would you mind just giving everyone your background because I don't want to mess anything up or miss anything.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. I am a pediatric nurse practitioner, and I have 30 years experience in pediatrics, 20 years experience as a pediatric nurse practitioner. I currently work in a private practice in McKinney in general pediatrics. And my passion is mental and emotional health for children and helping parents teach mental and emotional health for our kids.
Wow.
So that's my passion.
Wow. So wait, that's incredible. So your passion is to help the moms, you said? The parents?
Absolutely.
I love that. Okay, so tell me a little bit about that because that's incredible.
Yeah, so I think as parents, when I have, I love it. I see babies anywhere from 3 days old up until 18. And so what I tell the parents when they come in with this newborn, it's very important that they assess kind of how they grew up, the mom and dad. How did you grow up? What did you like about your upbringing? What would you have liked to change about your upbringing? We all have trauma in our life, whether that's created from school experiences, whether that's created from family environments. You have to say, who taught you how to think? Were they healthy? Were they wounded? Had they worked through their own life trauma? And so that's where we learn to do a lot of our thinking and our thinking patterns that develop.
Wow.
Because I explain to parents so behavioral health is an accumulation of basically our thinking, which produces our emotions, and then we act on it. So many times we're trying to change behavior. Johnny, stop overeating, stop undereating, stop fighting, stop being angry. We're trying to change behavior when really, until we go back and evaluate what's the thinking pattern that is creating the emotion and then they're acting on, we can't sustain a behavioral change. And I always say, it's very important that we don't judge behavior or judge ourselves. Go back and evaluate, very different. Evaluation is not judging. It is saying, it is what it is. Now, I wonder what created that thinking pattern in me. Where did I learn that thinking that's producing this behavior versus judgment is an opinion. That's bad. Because if we say, Johnny, that's a bad behavior, you can't act that way, we're going to attach shame to it, even to ourselves. If we say, I shouldn't have acted that way. I shouldn't have behaved in that way when I went to that party and I got aggressive with someone or I got in a disagreement. As soon as we say, I shouldn't have reacted, our psyche protects ourselves. So we instantly go into this shame mode, and we're not going to talk about, and neither are kids going to talk about a behavior if they feel shame attached to it. So it's very important to just evaluate, not judge good or bad. It just is. Yeah. And then look at, I wonder what message I took in either as a child that created this thinking pattern and this insecurity in me that I'm now reacting to.
Wow.
So those are my thoughts.
Well, no, I mean, that's incredible because I'm just thinking, my kids are 31 and 27, and I'm just thinking, how powerful would that have been for me, right?
Exactly.
And I'm here listening and thinking, I need this for me as an adult, right?
I think we all do.
Absolutely, absolutely. And, so my goal and passion is, if obviously, the company is for women, is to help women conquer the day, right? You know, in a good mood, have that sustained energy, not the quick fix from a espresso or whatever energy drink, but to treat the body at the cellular root level, right? Of having everything in balance, whether it's the moods or the stress or the anxiety or the hormones or the blood sugar. But I mean, you just brought a whole other level that's just so necessary and needed. Yes, I need to be in a good mood and I need to have energy to push through as like you seeing the new moms. But there's teachers out there that are dealing with children every day. And they may not have children. They may not even be married yet. There's just women in general, grandmother, whoever it might be, an aunt, a friend. Yes, valuable to have them feel good about themselves, right? That's my passion. That's kind of where I come from. But what you're doing is just incredible. So tell me a little bit about, I know you see you have some books and you've got some information there. So kind of just dive into, because this is just so interesting, kind of just dive into how you empower these ladies, really.
Yes. So I think it's so important for us to realize, why is mental and emotional health so valuable? Mental and emotional health, Dr. Caroline Leaf, who's a neuroscientist, she says in many of her books, 87% of illness, physical illness, comes from our thoughts and our emotions. Yeah. That's pretty mind-blowing, really.
Yes.
87% of physical illness comes from our thoughts and our emotions.
Wow.
Which I can say in some of my patients that come in, as soon as I will always, if they come in with a headache, stomach ache, I will always look for the physical first.
Yeah.
And I can tell the minute I start to mention, could stress be a component of this, is I get defense and I get resistance. And I think that comes from, we get frustrated thinking that it's not physical, because that means then couple things. I have to take responsibility for it.
Yes.
What am I doing that perhaps is creating more stress in me that's affecting my stomach or giving me headaches? And I think sometimes we feel inept to really manage our mental and emotional health.
Right.
And so my goal for my patients is to say, it's one step at a time.
Yeah.
When my kids come in and they have anxiety, let's educate ourselves on anxiety. Let's read books. Dr. Caroline Leaf has several books on managing our mental mess. I think we all can say, sometimes we are a mental mess.
Yes,
right?
agreed. Yes.
And I think, but there's hope in that. So I say lighten up sometimes on how much we stress over. We know we have behavioral things that we're not changing that we could change. Lighten up, and yet it is important because behavioral health, it's not only, life is all about relationships. Right?
Absolutely.
And if we can't love ourselves, learn to be kind to ourselves, learn to be kind to others, learn how to take feedback, understanding that feedback in a relationship is a gift.
Yes.
Because I say this for my parents, you want to make sure you're communicating to Johnny what you actually want to communicate.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
What's driving the statement that you say to him? Is it anger? Is it your fear of where his behavior is going to take him?
Right.
Are you parenting out of fear, or are you parenting out of peace?
Yes.
So it's important. Caroline Leaf also said, the managed stress of a parent will then produce in a child manageable stress. But the unmanaged stress of a parent will be passed on to a child. There again, that puts control into us, not more pressure. Parenting is not easy.
No.
We can say that from the get-go.
Yeah.
I say for anybody, mental and emotional health is not easy.
Right.
But neither is it easy to be physically fit, right? You got to get up early. I get up at 4:30. You got to exercise. You got to eat right. Food's very important for the mood as well.
Right.
Health is integrative. I think
Right.
Western medicine is becoming more and more aware of that. What we eat is important. Exercise is important. That produces endorphins for our brain.
Right.
Yeah, so I try to break down behavioral health into bite-sized pieces. You're not
Yes.
going to fix everything you've learned. And to your point, you have a 30-year-old child, you have a 27-year-old child. You know, it's never too late to heal.
Right.
It's never too late to
Right.
go back and to have those honest conversations with our kids that are grown
Right.
to say, you know what, I didn't have this teaching when you were young. And I
Right.
really I thought I was protecting you.
Yeah.
I thought I was giving you what you needed. That's all I knew to do. And I ask forgiveness. I ask, you know, what were the messages that perhaps I gave you that now I can tell you, that's not the message I wanted to give you.
Yeah.
This is what I wanted to give you.
Yeah.
Have those conversations. And that's what I teach parents. That is mental and emotional health for kids, is teaching them how to have those hard conversations with their friends now.
Right.
When you said this, I heard this, right? That's not, communication is not always what's said, it's what's heard.
That's right.
And that's what we react
right.
to.
Absolutely.
That's
Absolutely.
why many times we don't resolve issues in a relationship, whether that be a marital relationship, whether that be a child-parent relationship, because we're so busy trying to be understood
Yes.
that we don't stop and listen and try to understand,
Yeah.
right?
That is so good.
Johnny, when I say this to you, what are you hearing?
That is so good.
Because that's not what I want communicated, or that is what I want communicated.
Right.
So I know I can go on and on, but you
No,
let me know.
I'm loving it. I know it's fantastic because honestly, if you think about it, most relationships and conflict are from misunderstandings, which are exactly what you just laid out. I heard this. That wasn't your intent. But I internalized what I heard. You know, we call them the rose-covered glasses, right?
Right.
And if you do not have the proper glasses on, you're going to only see, if you have yellow glasses, the world's yellow.
That's right.
Yeah. So
That's
no,
right.
that's so powerful. And, you know, and I agree 100% with you. And by the way, I love Dr. Caroline Leaf. She's
Yes,
awesome.
It's amazing.
She is. I've read several of her books and she's come to my church several times and she's powerful. But there's just not a lot of people talking about it like you are. And there's not a lot of people that are really helping the people that are raising the children.
I agree.
You know, and it's so necessary. You know, I mean, I think even what you're doing, you go to the schools and the teachers too, because they're with those children a lot.
Absolutely.
You
And
know,
it's challenging. You know, my
so
big
challenging.
mantra in life is I don't want our kids on so many medications.
Yes.
And that's why I teach mental and emotional health,
Yes.
because for years now it's been a lot of adults taking so many medications instead of changing our behavior.
Agreed.
And now it's being passed down to our children. Children
Yes.
are being put on a lot of medications to change behavior. And I think that's a misunderstanding of the brain
Yes.
and what creates brain chemistry, because a lot of providers will say, well, your brain chemistry just needs medication. And I would disagree with that. And Dr. Caroline Leaf, who is a neuroscientist, would say our brain chemistry, and I will say much of the brain chemistry is created by our thoughts and our emotions. So we create that brain chemistry. And then now we're treating it with medications. So I just believe there's a lot of things. Now, I don't, and this is an educational podcast, I don't prescribe and diagnose. If you're on medications, I never say stop them.
Right.
You always consult your provider before you do that.
Yes.
But I think for me, I had panic attacks. I had anxiety in my teens, and that's what put me on the mission of mental and emotional health, because I grew up in a very unhealthy home. Alcoholism, very tense parents, very critical parents, a very negative environment, which created anxiety, insecurities in me, which then led to panic attacks. And so I just started studying everything I could study on what is anxiety. And I would say at that time, Now, that was many years ago. But I would have the psychiatrists and psychologists want to sedate me. They want to put medications. I didn't like the way medications made me feel. And I knew it just numbed the emotion. It was not teaching me how to think correctly. The people who taught me how to think were unhealthy. They had not processed through their wounds. They both had been wounded as children.
Right.
Mother abused. I don't know what dad's situation is. He grew up in poverty, though, and what that created in them. They weren't equipped to process it, or they weren't really willing to process it and get help. And if we don't process our trauma, we will pass it on to our kids, or we will pass it on to other people. We will project our insecurities onto others. But here's the thing with that. When we project our stuff onto others and then we react to it, it's a double negative for us. We'll never get what we're looking for in life, which is belonging and significance.
Yes.
We all want to belong to a tribe.
Yes.
We all want to feel valued in that tribe.
Yes.
And that's what kids want.
Yes.
And that's why we have to be so careful that we don't say, that is bad behavior, Johnny. That is bad behavior, Susie. No. They're just trying to find their significance. What is acceptable?
Right.
That, I don't like that we call it terrible twos. Yes, it can drive you crazy as a parent. I know it. But they're just trying to find, where do they start? Where do you stop? Now I see that I do have a little control. And now the way you react, I know I really have control.
Right.
So there's a book called Scream-Free Parenting by Hal Runkel. And it's all about parents and us and adults having self-control, not reacting and parenting out of fear and out of our emotion.
Yeah.
You think about it, how am I going to react to Johnny if I say, you are just being defiant? That behavior, you are just trying to make me angry. I'm going to be negative, demeaning. I'm going to try to take control, versus if I see his behavior as, wow, that's your developmental stage.
Right.
And you're supposed to push your boundaries.
Yes.
You're just trying to figure out, what is this okay? Is this not okay? Right. So if you recognize in yourself, and there again, your thoughts, if I say, Johnny's just he's curious.
Right.
I'm going to react in a different way than if I say you're being bad.
Right.
Right?
Absolutely.
So what our words and the intensity of our words are so important.
Yes.
And if we're stressed, right? I say this many times to parents, you have an agenda. Johnny has a doctor's appointment. We got to get there at a certain time. He's 4. He really could care less about your agenda.
Yeah. Right.
But yet, so in the moment of if you're parenting in the moment, you're going to be stressed. And that's when get out the door, stop painting, stop drawing, stop doing whatever you're doing. I just need, and we escalate the stress, which passes on to the child. Yeah. Versus, did I prepare Johnny? Johnny, you have a doctor's appointment. So I'm going to let's lay your clothes out in the morning. Let's, or at night, let's prepare him for that. And then also us, preparing ourselves enough to where that moment is not stressful. Right. So that we give him the right messages in the moment of parenting. Right.
Well, and you've mentioned a few things. First of all, I want to commend you for, excuse me, my goodness, excuse me, for as a teen digging in, because a lot of us, we're just tired. We stay in our junk, right? We stay stuck and we don't know how to get out. So clearly God had a purpose for you because you were young to be able to do that. Excuse me. So just want to commend you on that. I also want to say that you're right on that. See, it's interesting because, I'm hearing you, and you and I are really doing very similar things. We're going down these lanes that are very parallel. I'm not a nurse practitioner. I'm not doing these things. However, my passion is the same. Yes. Is I want those women, they don't have to necessarily have children, but those women, maybe their daughters, sisters, friends, whatever they are, I want them to feel empowered within. And I thought to myself, how can I come alongside someone like you, Piper, who is helping with mental health? But how can I, because I kind of used myself. I just went through this depressing time in my life, and I've always been a high energy person. I've always been a happy person, wake up happy, go to sleep happy. And I found myself just depressed. I didn't want to get up. I didn't want to do anything. It took all I could. I felt like I had cement legs and cement body, just to get up. And at the time, I think I had all the adult kids living here. And then I also had some other adult kids living with me. And it was just hard. It was hard. And then I was hard on myself because, I didn't get anything done and I didn't get anything accomplished. And I was just in this spiral. And I've always been, health passion, health advisor, health coach, all of those things. And I really got an understanding of what it felt like to be on that other side. And it wasn't good. And so when I was formulating, I'm not a formulator, but when I was putting together my company, I wanted to give women an edge. I wanted that edge. I needed that edge. And I couldn't get caffeine or espresso. I can't do any of those. It makes my heart palpitate. And so I always kept that in the back of my mind, is that, if I was just in a good mood, that probably would have helped me. If I was focused, if I had my stress and anxiety under control, then my blood sugar and my hormones, that all came all into the equation of how Beauty Balance arrived. But what's interesting is when you were speaking, I thought to myself, oh my goodness, what you're doing is helping us. I'm just coming alongside and saying, hey, listen, you need what God has given us. These are great herbs. There's no chemicals. There's nothing junk. It's going to make you feel better, have some energy, so you can read those books. Because I really couldn't even read, and I've always been a reader. I couldn't even read, And so it's like, okay, I'm going to come alongside of you and help you conquer this. And your information it's just amazing. You've said so many things that are just so important. But no one's talking about it. And so I just love everything that you're doing.
Thank you so much.
Oh my goodness, yes. And, being a nurse practitioner is also just so incredible because, you know what you're doing. You understand, right? You see patients all day long and you understand. And that's what I love about your work and why I was so excited, to have you come and chat with us, because you can take your expertise of being a nurse practitioner and then your understanding of the importance of thoughts and just what you were talking about and laying it out. I think every one of us can relate that how we grew up, sure, may not have been very dysfunctional,
right,
but it was dysfunctional. Because they didn't talk about these things years ago.
Exactly right.
And they didn't understand that, yelling at you, right, and telling you you're whatever, how much it was going to impact us, And so anyway, I just love what you're doing. And I know I could have used it growing up.
Y'all could have.
Yeah, to tell, for someone to say these things to me. So I didn't internalize. See, I internalized a lot of things. Right?
As we do.
Yes. So kind of share with me, I know that you were mentioning the books, and then you had some other helpful triggers. I think the hand,
Yes.
you were kind of sharing that. Explain that.
So I went to a seminar recently, a neuroscience seminar, and Dr. Brian King gave an analogy that I thought it was great on stress. Gave a definition, and then I have Dr. Siegel gave an analogy that I'll go over with you. But so Dr. Brian King says that stress is simply the brain's reaction to a danger or a perceived threat. So the brain doesn't really understand, is this really a bear coming at me? Or is this a perceived threat that I'm just perceiving as a threat, whether it be a work deadline, that be, I need to get to a doctor's appointment and Sally's not cooperating. It's what someone else thinks of me. You know, my thing was growing up, I felt like I didn't know how to have a quality conversation because we never had those in the family. So when I was a hairstylist, this is how panic starts from anxiety. It's about our thoughts. So I would say someone would come in for a haircut, and mostly men. Dad was not emotionally connected with us, me and my sisters, really. He was there, but he wasn't emotionally connected. So I didn't really know how to have a quality conversation with a man. Now, I have learned they probably did not want a quality conversation while they got their haircut. I didn't know that at 19. So I would stress over that. But this is how panic starts. Anything we hide, anxiety, fear, grows. So that's why it's so important to talk about it, to get it out. And so how that would escalate to a panic attack. And our goal with what I'm going to show you is how to de-escalate our stress. So it would be, okay, this gentleman's coming in, he's going to have a haircut. I don't know what to say. I don't really know what to say to him. I don't know how to start a conversation. And then he's going to think I'm dumb. Well, he's going to think, and then I'm not going to know what to do. Now my hands are shaking. Now he really thinks I'm weak. And now, do you see how that escalates?
Wow, yes.
That escalates into a panic. And where did that start? With a thought. My thought, not his thought, but I'm projecting my thoughts onto this person.
Yes.
And then I'm reacting to it. My body doesn't know this is not really a bear.
Right.
So my heart rate goes up. I start sweating, my hands shake. So my brain thinks this is a real threat. And so many times we don't understand what's going on in our body, but it's our adrenaline because the brain just says there's a threat.
Right.
And so here's an analogy that I thought was so good. So Dr. Siegel, and there's a handout that you can do for kids. It's called Big Brain, Little Brain. And I'll kind of explain to you, and it has a hand analogy, but this is for kids. So when they're kicking and screaming, this is what's going on with your brain. And you can explain this to them. Kicking, screaming, pushing, throwing things. They're fidgeting. They're acting restless. You can show them how this happens. The hand-brain model. Pretend your hand is the brain, right? So your wrist is the brain stem, and that leads to your nervous system, which then accelerates the norepi and the epinephrine and the adrenaline, right? So all the catecholamines that increase the blood pressure, increase the heart rate, shut down the immune system. Like I said before, if a bear's chasing you, I don't need to fight off a cold, and I don't need to think about what I'm going to eat. So it shuts down the digestive system as well. And then you also start breathing fast. So think of the hand as the brain. This is the amygdala. So this is the primitive part of the brain that is all emotion. So when you're stressed, the primitive brain senses a danger. It doesn't know if it's real or it's just perceived. So the goal in that is to then get the cerebral cortex, the frontal cortex, which is the thinking, the conscious part of the brain, in control, right? So when we tell kids, we say, when you flip your lid, you're just letting that primitive brain be in control. We got to stop and take a deep breath and then ignite the conscious thinking. So here's some ways to get the primitive brain out of control. So interesting, for those that have a fear of speaking in public, many times practitioners will give them beta blockers. What that does is lower the heart rate and tells the brain there's no threat. You're not in any threat. So it lowers the emotions because it lowers your heart rate. It tells the brain, isn't that interesting? It tells the brain there's no threat. And so then I can use my cerebral frontal cortex is where your thinking, conscious thinking is. I can then think through this situation.
Right.
This is really not a bear. So I've learned to tell myself that when I'm in traffic and I feel everything going up and I'm starting to get stressed because they're really not going as fast as I want them to.
That's funny.
Or I'm on a deadline and I'm going to be late to work, right?
Yeah,
you
that's
get
funny.
all that stress in you.
Yeah.
It's not a bear.
Yes.
I tell myself it's not a bear. Here's the other thing that can help with, instead of beta blockers, there again, I try to do everything natural. and not by medications, because there's always chemicals in medications. There's always side effects. That's why
we did Beauty Balance.
That's why you did
right.
Beauty Balance, because you want to do it natural.
Yeah, they can do
And
that.
so taking a deep breath
Yes.
lowers the heart rate.
Yes.
So people would always tell me, take a deep breath when you're stressed. And I'm like, that's the last thing I feel like doing,
Right.
But when they told me the science behind it,
Yes.
then I was like, okay, I'll try that. That makes sense. If I take a deep breath, it lowers the heart rate and tells the brain there's no threat.
Right.
Now I have time to bring in my conscious thinking.
Yes.
Okay, what am I stressed about? I think I'm on a deadline when I think they're going to think I'm not interested in work if I am late. I think it's all the self-talk that's going on and escalating and creating the stress. That's what's important, that we learn to decrease and de-escalate our stress.
Yes.
So then we can have, Dr. I believe it was Henry Cloud that said, emotional reactivity is the enemy of all relationships.
Yeah. I love him too. He's great.
He is great. And he's a psychologist. So Dr. Henry Cloud's a psychologist. Him and Dr. Townsend wrote a great book on boundaries.
Right.
And that was probably one of the statements in that, is that because when we're stressed, we usually are in that primitive brain mode.
Yes.
We're just reacting.
Right.
You're triggering a memory.
Yes.
Is usually why I'm reacting.
Yes.
Or a message that I received as a child. So here's some messages that we misunderstand, I think, many times. I've had patients come in and mother left them when they were 7 or 8, or father left the home. As that child at the developmental stage that they were at said to themselves, if I'd only had more value,
Right.
mom and dad would have stayed.
Yes.
So they take that on as someone else's behavior.
Yes.
They reflect it onto themselves and say, if I'd have had more value.
Right.
So they carry that. How this carries out into adult life and relationships is now the rest of their life, they want to prove to everybody, I am valuable.
Yes.
I am valuable.
Yes.
Others already know you're valuable.
Right.
But because you don't feel valued because of someone else's behavior that you interpreted in your teens, right? So a lot of messages we take on and interpret at an emotional and intellectual level,
Right.
that now as an adult, we're still functioning
Absolutely.
in that developmental level of a message that we interpreted at 18, at 15, at 14. So that's why it's important to go back and think about those situations, things that were said to you, things that hurt you, and then with the new interpretation of and reframing it, other people's behavior is about them.
Right.
That mother left because she didn't know how to handle her stress.
Right.
That father left because he couldn't manage his stress. Had nothing to do with the child.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So
Right.
that's us. Many times we're reflecting and projecting our thoughts and our insecurities onto others.
Right.
And then we're reacting to it.
Absolutely.
And we will do that with our kids or siblings or coworkers.
Right. Right.
When you're parenting, this is a good thing to think of. It's called positive discipline, parenting for the future.
Yes.
What kind of relationship do I want to have with this child when they're 20?
Right. Right.
That's
good.
That's what you're building.
Yep.
Parenting is all about the relationship.
Absolutely.
We always say when people know how much you care,
Yes.
right? Then
Time.
they know how much you
Yes.
care, then they're willing to listen to you. So with
Absolutely.
parenting and relationships in general, mental and
Right.
emotional health,
Right. Right.
we have to take care of ourselves. You have
Well,
to
yeah,
take
and
care
we
of
have to
yourself first.
know who we are. See, that was my problem. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know who my Father, God, was. And that was a huge, huge component
Absolutely.
to me falling into, like you said, taking on everybody else's stuff and internalizing it. And once I started, and I think it's a process, I would have to say I'll do that to the
Absolutely.
day I go be
Yes.
with the Lord, of really knowing who I am.
Yes.
Yes. And that's one of the hearts here at Fiorina Beauty is, on the ministry side, is that we teach them who they are, who they belong to, because like you said, they don't feel valued. Well, I need to value me in order for me to even be able to take the next step to understand that, okay, you know what? That was your stuff. I'm not going to take it on, but I have to feel worthy within myself, and I have to feel valued within myself of knowing what God says about me, right?
That's exactly right.
Yeah. So there's just so many facets, and I
health.
really thought of all these things, that were so important to me, with, just launching out and creating this movement for women, was that I meant to tell her to. Hey, come on in, Melissa. Come on in. Go have a seat, honey. We're almost done. Yeah, you look adorable. And that was really, a very missing component that I needed for me, but I didn't know. I wasn't aware.
Absolutely.
Yes. And so in creating Fiorina Beauty and knowing that I wanted that tribe, of women that we could come to this safe place. In fact, if you have time, I obviously would love to have you come back, but I'd also love, if there's questions, that they want to ask you, if you have time, no pressure. You don't have to answer now, but, just valuable, to have someone like yourself and all the other ladies that are so excited to pour back into women. We all need to pour into each other.
Absolutely.
But it really starts with knowing who we are. And it starts with all of the information, that you've given us, is that we have to understand that, we as parents, we don't get a manual, as you know,
Right.
and you're trying to help the parents.
Yes.
And so I love that. And I so want to talk more and more about this because it's just so necessary, because we think we're just providing food and shelter and clothes. We're not. We're providing their emotional health, their emotional being, which is just so much more important, because you see us adults, we're walking around. I refer to a few people that I know. They're 6-year-olds in such and such an age of a body because they're stuck.
Right.
And it's just sad because they're good people. They have
Right.
good hearts.
Absolutely.
And they just have never been equipped. And they're depressed, so they can't read. And
Right.
so there's just that gap. And so there's just so much that I want to offer to our family, Fiorina Beauty family of ladies. And I think that it is going to take a village, just like, I was brought up by a village, right, of the Italian
Yes.
family. It takes a village, and my heart is for us ladies to come together. And so I just commend you for what you're doing, because you're really coming together with the moms out there. I mean, the dads
Absolutely.
too, but you're trying to equip them and empower them. And we here at Fiorina Beauty are doing the same thing, want to do the same thing, of empowering women to be the best that they can be, and trying to make it as simple as we can for them. Okay, yes, you're going to be in a better mood. You drink the Beauty Balance. And then you're going to be able to listen to podcasts with you, Piper. And we just want to be able to come alongside and bring that hug. So we do have a team of ladies that are going to be there to answer questions and whatever it is that they need, because I believe that with a village, with a community, we can really conquer this. I just love all that you're doing, because yes, it's just so valuable. And anyway, I'm just excited. I'm excited that you were here today. I'm excited to have you come back if you have time. I know you're really busy because you do your own podcast. Are you writing a book, by the way?
I am writing a book.
Okay. Well, we
Yes.
want the
Mental
book.
and emotional health for kids. Yes.
Okay, good. We want the book. And we're going to have events someday, so we'd love for you to come and speak and sell your book, and just bring all of your information. And you just have such a beautiful heart. You have a beautiful spirit, and you radiate with terrific energy. And I'm just so honored to have you here. And I'm so excited that we met. So my bestie of 20-something years actually introduced us over the phone.
Yes.
So we're actually meeting in person for the first time. So
great.
Janice, big hugs to you, because Piper has just been a huge blessing today. And I just appreciate you. So with that, thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
Yes, and just will you keep us informed?
I will.
Okay.
I will.
Okay. And we're going to
so-
be telling everyone about that book
Thank you.
and all of your information.
And I want to say just one thing I have to add.
Please.
Is when you do find yourself in a place where you say, I can't even get out of bed to read, or, you just can't even move.
Yes.
I think what I did was listen to sermons at the time.
Yes,
That was
I
when
did
cassettes were it. But
Yeah.
that's what I did, is when you
Yes.
can't read, your brain will
Yes,
hear.
that's right.
If you just listen to
Yes.
stuff, even if you think it's not really going in, if you can't, I say read the word, I say listen to sermons, I say
Right.
listen to positive information. You just want to fill yourself with everything positive.
Yeah.
Because like I said, your thoughts will produce your emotions. So the more positive in, you're going to get positive out.
Oh, thank you for bringing that up, because that's all I could do.
Yes.
And
Myself
that,
as well.
Yes, and that is so important. Thank you for bringing that up. I so appreciate it. We have our tagline here, and I want to first say it to you. So in Italian, sei bella. Sei bella means you are beautiful. So I want to say to you, sei bella.
Thank you.
And then I want to say to everybody, sei bella. And so this is our incredible podcast with Piper, our nurse practitioner. And so all of you out there, thank you for joining us today. And I know you're going to probably rewatch this because she gave us a lot of information. So with that, sei bella to all of you, and thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode of the Fiorina Beauty Podcast. We hope you found inspiration and valuable insights to enhance your wellness journey. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to like, comment, and share it with your friends and family. Your feedback means the world to us. Make sure to subscribe to the Fiorina Beauty Podcast on your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. We release new content every week packed with tips, stories, and interviews to empower you on your path to beauty and well-being. Remember, your support helps us grow and reach more listeners like you who are passionate about living a balanced and radiant life. Together, let's continue this journey of beauty and empowerment. Stay tuned for next week's episode, and until then, sei bella. Thank you again for listening.